The Battle of Exegol is by far one of the worst things to come out of the Rise of Skywalker, and that's saying something because there is a lot of competition.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
I'm the spy.
Rise Skywalker.
Even though the awfulness of Rise of Skywalker is very overshadowed by its older brother, The Last Jedi, most Star Wars fans still think this movie is pretty garbage, and the Battle of Exegol is really the nail in the coffin for that general opinion. So today, I'm going to go over exactly why this entire scene is so bad. Let's get into it. First of all, one of the biggest flaws in this scene fundamentally lies within the premise of the battle itself. Essentially, Emperor Palpatine is back, and in the stupidest way possible, just to be really clear here, but that's a video for another time. And he's risen a fleet of thousands of old Empire-style Star Destroyers. But that's not all. Oh no, that would be way too reasonable for Disney. Not only are there thousands of Star Destroyers, but each Star Destroyer has a weapon attached to it that can blow up a planet. Yes, you heard me right. An individual Star Destroyer can now just obliterate a planet. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Jedwerd, you handsome bastion of reasonability, how does that possibly make any freaking sense in any way whatsoever? I mean, throughout all of Star Wars, blowing up a planet has always been something that was very hard to do. You either need to spend years building a space station the size of a moon, or you need to go turn an entire planet into a housing chamber for a planet-destroying laser. You need time, resources, and a place big enough to hold such a massive weapon. However you slice it, it is quite obviously not just a single gun that can get the job done. Well, my dear viewer, my response to you is just, how can you be so freaking stupid? I mean, of course you can attach one big gun to our normal Star Destroyer and call it a day. That makes absolute sense, and totally doesn't turn blowing up a freaking planet into a laughably easy task. Okay, sure, those other aforementioned planet-destroying weapons took years, if not decades, to plan, make, and then finally use, but those guys were just stupid, you see, they were morons. They could have just attached a really big honking gun to a Star Destroyer and done the exact same thing. I hope you can see just how absurd this is. I mean, if you can turn a planet-destroying weapon into one big gun and attach it to a ship, then most of the earlier efforts of the Empire and the First Order have just been totally absurd and useless. Like, this completely destroys a lot of the canon for Star Wars. It might make a little more sense if Disney had explained how exactly they had made these weapons or how they were able to make them so small, but they didn't really do that. In fact, the whole idea somehow becomes more insane because the First Order aren't really the ones behind it. Maybe if the First Order had been directly making these, then it would make more sense because we know how many resources the First Order has. Instead, all of these Star Destroyers were salvaged, reconstructed, and armed with a planet-destroying gun off in the middle of bumfrick nowhere on a planet that is not able to be found by a guy who should have been dead for over 30 years. Oh, and we're just getting started. Don't just you wait. Now, you could make the argument that after Kylo Ren found Sidious, the First Order then went and started helping him build these ships. But even if that were true, which they never directly confirm or deny, then the First Order would have had exactly 1.5 days to come offer their help to Sidious. 1.5. And the way I know this is I asked ChatGPT, which is a perfectly legitimate way to learn this, because this is a freaking YouTube video made by a 38-year-old man, not a book report on Old Yeller by a sophomore in high school. Although, if you were wondering, Old Yeller does die in the end. Sorry, spoiler alert. But anyway, now that we actually have our basic premise, let me break it down for you real quick. Okay, sorry. Now let's actually break down what we've established so far, and no more jokes. Basically, a fleet of thousands of Star Destroyers has been completely rebuilt, but this time, they have a big gun attached to each one that can blow up a planet. On every single one. Holy frick, this movie is dumb. But not only that, they were built by a guy who was killed 3 decades ago on a planet that no one knows exists and also cannot be found without the use of just 2 maps, both of which haven't been used for years and both of which are accounted for. And you might be wondering, well Jedwerd, if Sidious hasn't been seen by anybody in years and he's on a planet that can't be found, how did he possibly build these thousands of planet-destroying Star Destroyers? The answer, my wonderfully curious viewer, who should really hit that subscribe button because only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed and it would really help me out, is that we don't really freaking know. They never really tell us. We don't know. We just don't know. Not only is the explanation for this not provided, these questions are never even brought up. Looking at it through the eyes of the characters, you know, like Rey or Rose Tico or Poe Dameron or someone, either all the characters in the movie already know the answers to these questions so well that they're not even worth asking, or all these characters are just dumb as freaking bricks and lack the critical thinking skills needed to even comprehend the basic concerns that this situation has. Don't ask me why, but I'm guessing it's the latter. But from a writing perspective, you know, the guys who made the movie, I think that J.J. Abrams just didn't know the answers himself and thought that if he brought back Darth Sidious and Star Destroyers and X-Wings, that all the fans would be foaming at the mouth and wouldn't think of asking any questions. Yeah, how'd that one work out for you, JJ? And the best part is that we're just getting started. For some reason, the Star Destroyer fleet needs a navigation signal in order to guide the ships. I don't really know why they would need that. I feel like each ship could individually set course to where they need to go, but whatever. There's a navigation tower on the ground of Exegol that the First Order plans to use to send out the navigation signal. But after they see the Resistance targeting that, they simply move the navigation signal to the command ship. Seems simple enough. But then what happens next is so weird that I can't even, you know what? I need to show you the clip. I just need to show you the clip.
Wait. The nav signal is coming from that command ship. That's our drop zone.
How do you know?
A feeling.
Yep, you saw that right. Somehow, Finn saw the command Star Destroyer in the distance and just knew the signal was coming from there. He just had a feeling. And then for some reason, everyone just trusted him, and that was that. This whole, oh guys, I just have a feeling thing would have made way more sense if a Force user had said it, because alright, maybe then they really did have a feeling that mattered, but Finn is just a guy. And worst of all, they had the easiest possible opportunity ever, and they chose not to do it for no reason. Finn used to be a stormtrooper, right? I mean, back in the day. So what if instead of blindly saying, oh guys, I have a feeling, he said something that he might actually know? Like, oh guys, it's standard First Order procedure to make the navigation signal emit from the command ship in the circumstance that the navigation tower is damaged. Boom, problem solved. Of course he would know this. I mean, he was a stormtrooper, and there's no reason that this wouldn't be First Order standard procedure. I mean, surely navigation towers have broken before. They would have had some plan for when it happens. But for some reason, the second and third sequels wanted everyone to forget that Finn was a stormtrooper at one point, so instead of doing smart stuff like this, they make him say dumb crap like, I have a feeling. Typical Disney. Typical. Now boys, one of the key parts of getting older and maturing is being able to acknowledge good things. Too often, and I used to be really guilty of this too, I mean, just to look at my old videos, we look at something we don't like and try to spin every part of it into something bad just because we don't like the core thing. And this happens with the Star Wars sequels way too much. Yes, the sequels are trash, but there are occasional good parts. And one of those good parts, in my opinion, is a scene in the Battle of Exegol where they use those animals to run on top of the Star Destroyer. It's fun, it's creative, and it makes sense that those tribesmen would choose to do it. I mean, they are tribesmen who use the animals as part of their daily lives, so why wouldn't they do that? And best of all, it does solve a genuine problem. That being, if they had used speeders, then the First Order would have just jammed the speeders and stopped them from working. So let's use this as a lesson, boys, that even things we hate have good parts, and it's kinda lame and immature not to recognize those out of pure spite. Now, all that being said, the entire plot point of animals being needed in the first place can be countered with the fact that they could just, land closer to the target. Or walk. But as it is, using animals does make some sense and isn't a huge plot hole, so I think it's fine. Anyway, after they get to the navigation system on the Star Destroyer, they have to go drop a bunch of bombs in a certain hole in the deck, which, quote, is blast proof. So BB-8 has to manually open it. Maybe I'm missing something here, but how is something in Star Wars blast proof? I feel like most of Star Wars is just people blasting open stuff which isn't meant to be blasted open. Like, I'm just gonna make a crazy guess here, call me insane, but every single door that they blow open in all of Star Wars probably isn't designed with the intention of getting blown open, you know what I mean? You're saying they have this technology to make something blast proof, but they only do it to certain things. I mean, I guess, hey, whatever floats their boat, I guess, I don't know. I guess we have like bulletproof glass that we use on like the president's car or the Rizzler's car, but we don't use it to most cars. So I guess there's similar analogies in the real world. I guess that makes a little sense. You know what? I take back most of my criticism. Some things need to be blast proof more than other things. Moving on, they do end up getting the blast proof hole open, and they drop a bunch of bombs in there and blow up the navigation tower on the Star Destroyer, shutting it down. But then, like 2 seconds later, Poe says that the nav signal won't be down for long, and then the First Order themselves talks about resetting it in a couple minutes. So what was even the point of taking it down? Like, I guess it gives them more time to attack the Star Destroyers, but they can't play this game forever, and eventually the First Order is just gonna overwhelm them. I think their plan was just to buy time until some mysterious unknown backup arrives, which I'm just gonna say is an insane plan. Like, actually insane. I mean, remember in The Last Jedi when the Resistance is on Crate and they send out a distress signal to the galaxy, hoping that random people would show up and help them? Spoiler alert, nobody showed up. Nobody showed up and nobody helped them. So in my personal opinion, and I feel like if you're a rational person, it is absolute insanity to be the Resistance and think to yourself, let's go blindly attack 1,000 Star Destroyers and pray that millions of random people show up, even though they didn't last time. Holy frick, millions of random people showed up, even though they didn't last time. What the heck?
You can't keep getting away with it!
That's right, just as all hope looks lost and the Resistance looks like they're getting overwhelmed, thousands of ships show up from all over the galaxy and they're all led by the Millennium Falcon. This is one of those scenes that on the surface seems really happy and makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but then you think about it for like 2 seconds and all of a sudden you're more confused than before. To me, the big problem with this scene is the sheer inconsistency between movies. As I just mentioned, in The Last Jedi, the Resistance called for help on Crate, but to their shock, no one showed up at all. They learned that they are basically, for all intents and purposes, alone in the galaxy, and no one supports them enough to actually show up when they need it most. However, despite the lack of outside help, the Resistance did survive in The Last Jedi, and did live to fight another day. So obviously, the help of random people wasn't absolutely necessary. Now, imagine trying to call for help again. Imagine you sent out a signal and said, hey guys, remember last time we called for your help and you didn't come and we actually ended up surviving? Well, funny story, we actually need your help again. But this time, Emperor Palpatine has come back from the dead, and he's on a secret Sith planet that no one's ever heard of, and he has a fleet of Star Destroyers, all of which can destroy a planet if they want to. And just trust us. I promise, you guys gotta trust us. I mean, just take our word for it. Personally, if I were receiving that message, first of all, I just wouldn't be as inclined to believe that the Resistance needed help. I think to myself, well, they called for help last time, and they were fine. They're probably just being drama queens this time. And even if, for some reason, I did decide to help them, when I heard the situation they were up against, I just don't think I'd believe them. I mean, even though it's true, it sounds so absurd that I don't think I'd buy it. You're telling me that a guy's been dead for 30 years, has a fleet of Starkiller Star Destroyers on a planet I've never heard of and can't be found through natural means? Alright, let's put down the doinky oinky, Snoop. I think you smoked enough for one day. So no matter how you slice it, I just feel like there's no possibility that all these random guys actually would show up. That's what I think, at least. You could argue that maybe the fact that the Resistance survived on Kree even when no help arrived proved that their cause is stronger than it looks, but that just sounds way less reasonable to me, and it's kind of a stretch. Or you could argue that maybe hope won out, and all these people suddenly realized that the Resistance is a noble cause worth fighting for. And yeah, I mean, how the frick am I supposed to counter that? There's no logical basis, it's an emotional appeal. But all I can say is, it just doesn't feel likely, and it makes no sense in continuity with how the random people reacted the last time the Resistance needed help. What's really crazy is that all of this could have made total sense if they just hadn't called for help in The Last Jedi. But because the Resistance did do exactly that, all they proved was that their allies were unwilling to show up when it really mattered. Even funnier is that The Last Jedi would have ended up the exact same way if they just hadn't included that plot point. But this trilogy was so fractured and disorganized that there was no way to know that this would end up coming back to bite them. I guess that's what happens when you make 3 movies and change the director in the middle. They have different visions for how they want to do things, and unless they work together carefully, everything just kind of falls apart around them. Not that J.J. Abrams by himself was a brilliant director, but Rian Johnson certainly didn't help the process by taking a fat dump in the middle movie of the trilogy. Anyway, all these random people show up, and they start absolutely decimating the Star Destroyers. I mean, just going through them like chewing gum, destroying their cannons, and generally popping the frick off. But then everything goes wrong, and this is where I have to tie in what's happening down below. Basically, Rey and Kylo Ren are confronting Darth Sidious, and that whole plotline has a ton of issues too, but that's not what this video is about. All you need to know right now is that Sidious got back his strength, and in light of the Resistance reinforcements showing up, he stuck his hands in the air, started cackling, and shot a buttload of lightning into the sky, hitting every single ship that was fighting the First Order and deactivating them. I don't even think I need to explain how insane this is. I mean, just a few decades ago, Darth Vader struggled to pull down a small ship, and now Sidious gets his power back and obliterates millions of ships at will with total ease. It is the Force, to be fair, so its abilities are way harder to quantify, but this just feels insane. It makes you wonder why Sidious couldn't have done this in Return of the Jedi, for example. Regardless, eventually Rey has her moment and stops Sidious from shooting electricity into the sky, and as soon as that happens, all the Resistance ships come back online, and then they proceed to just instantly obliterate the Star Destroyers. I mean, every single one. Like, I'm saying within 10 seconds, the movie shows us that every Star Destroyer is blowing up and plummeting towards Exegol on fire. And that's that's just it. So talk about anticlimactic. It's like within 30 seconds, the movie goes from the Resistance is hopeless to, oh wow, they just won. There's no competition. It's over. The Resistance destroyed them. And then as icing on the cake, Finn just randomly says that a bunch of people are rising up all over the galaxy, and all of a sudden they show a bunch of random freaking shots. Like, oh, here's Coruscant, but there's a smoking Star Destroyer falling. And here's Endor. You remember Endor with the Ewoks, but with an exploding Star Destroyer in the sky. And Jakku, of course you recall Jakku, but there's a Star Destroyer plummeting towards the ground. I'm just curious, at what point did they even show the Star Destroyers getting here? Like, are these from Exegol, or are they just random First Order ships? Did they shut down when the rest of the fleet did, or did the people on these planets just happen to overthrow them? And if they did, how do they even know that now is the time to do that? This raises so many questions and then goes ahead and proceeds to answer or even address literally none. But then that sentence right there that I just said pretty much sums up the entire Battle of Exegol. It's a convoluted, confusing mess with random events happening, almost nothing explained, and a quicker ending than when my dogs decide to start roughhousing with each other. Surprisingly, the smaller one always wins, like every single time. He's older than the Yellow Lab and has like superiority, so she shows him respect. But anyway, if you guys like this video, then I know you like this one, where I ranked every single lightsaber duel in Star Wars. It's long, but if you got the time, then it's well worth it. I really recommend you check it out. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.